Former NHL player and award-winning NHL coach Ted Nolan is one of just a handful of Indigenous athletes who have ever played in the National Hockey League. He spent 3 seasons as a player. He later returned to the league as a coach. And while he had a remarkable professional success, even winning the Jack Adams Coach of the Year award, he also faced racism and other setbacks. He's now recounting his experiences in his new memoir, Life in Two Worlds. Ted Nolan joins us this morning. Great to have you on the show.
Oh, thank you for having me, Anne-Marie.
Okay, Ted, 2 things I noticed about this cover. One is your sweet flow that's happening. I mean, check out that hairdo. And the other one is this fantastic title called Life in Two Worlds. Let's unpack that a bit. Which 2 worlds are you referring to? And how were the rules different in each of those worlds?
Well, I didn't quite understand that myself, but as I was writing the book, it kept referring back to when I left the reserve and living on reserve. So I just kind of like, and I mentioned a couple of times, it's like living in 2 worlds. So, one where you're really loved and everything is safe and everything is nice, and then all of a sudden you go out to the other side. When I went my first time away in Kenora, Ontario, and I faced a whole different world than what I was used to.
Yeah, what kinds of things did you face?
I've never really faced any kind of racism really growing up, because we all lived together. We all went to the same school, and we're always the bigger kids in class, and we're all together. So I had my brothers, my sisters, everybody was there. So I never really faced any kind of real serious racism growing up, except when I went to Kenora. Kenora, Ontario. At the time, I was 16. I just lost my father, and I heard some name calling I never heard before. Get back to the reserve, you stinking wahoo, you prairie N-word, and all those type of things. And people wanted to fight all the time, and I just got scared. Then I went to school, and the same thing happened at school. So I couldn't go to two places at the same time and try to live somewhat normally. So I stopped going to school that year, and try to concentrate on hockey. And tell you the truth, I rarely remember the whole season.
You talk in this book about your love of hockey, your passion for hockey was so great. You even built your own ice rink. Tell me that story.
Well, yeah, we had one community rink, but it seemed like all the adults were always on it playing, and there was no room for the kids. So one day I looked at it, said, it didn't look that hard to build your own. So I pumped up. We didn't have indoor plumbing, so I pumped a pail of water, and I walked to the back of my house, packed down some snow, put the water on, and all of a sudden it froze, and I made it bigger and bigger. But now I look back at it, I bet you I was 7 or 8. It took me thousands and thousands of time with this little pail of water. And can you imagine an 8-year-old carrying it back at probably half full when you get back there? So it took me a long time, but I guess it just showed me another form of perseverance. If you stick through something, eventually it'll work out.
And that level of perseverance and that working out really did for you. Although you mentioned in the book, coaching was never one of the careers that you planned on pursuing.
Hockey nor coaching. It just they just both found me. I just loved playing the game, and when I was done, tell you the truth, I was so tired. I was so tired of trying to prove yourself as a player, and I was kind of really glad to get out. Then I went back to school, and I ran into a coach in Lake Superior State Lakers. His name was Frank Anselone. He asked me if I'd be interested in helping him out. And here's a name from the past, Phyllis Bizzito. He owned the Sioux Greyhound at the time, with the junior team that I played for, and he asked if I'd be interested in helping them out. Anyways, long story short, they fired the head coach within a few months, and they asked if I'd want to take over, which I flatly declined, because I didn't know what I was doing. And I just kind of did it as a favor, and then the fans started booing. We weren't a very good team, and I was a god-awful coach. And but that booing and that sense of not fitting in again kind of steered something up inside me that I wanted to prove that I could do this too. So I learned how to be a coach. I called up a number of coaches that I played with. I studied. I bought a book called The Sacred Hoop. I thought it was a spiritual book, but it happened to be Jackson's when he won all the championships with the Chicago Bulls. So I read that, and I just learned all the stuff that he did with Scottie Pippen, Michael Jordan, and all those guys. And I'm going, man, if he could do that there, I could do that here in junior hockey. So it just kind of took off from there. We went from bottom to first, 3 consecutive Memorial Cup appearances. But I tell you, coaching is something that I just loved.
Just for a moment, Ted, want to touch back on the racism that you faced moving up the rank in the sports in the 70s and 80s. That's devastating, but it also makes me think of more recent cases in the NHL. Players like Ethan Bear and Zach Whitecloud. Do you think much has changed since the time that you started out? Has there been change? Has there been progress?
It's it's changed to a point. It's not so obvious anymore. Like even towards the end of my career, people would be just saying it out loud, and they had no regards to what anybody thought. Then all of a sudden, it became a social issue. Then all of a sudden, they said it underneath their breath. Kind of, so it's changing. It's working, but I think the biggest thing right now is, a lot of people said education got us in this trouble with the residential schools, but now education, I believe, can get us out of this also.
Education is part of what you do with your organization, the Three Nolans, which is part of this book here. Enjoyed learning more about your story, Ted, and great to meet you today.
And thank you very much for having me on.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you liked this, be sure to subscribe here, or you can check out more Your Morning videos right here.